In the world of business transactions, especially in mergers and acquisitions, fundraising and strategic partnerships, the terms term sheet and letter of intent, LOI, often come up. Understanding the differences between these two documents is crucial for any entrepreneur, investor, or corporate executive involved in deal-making. While both documents are preliminary agreements that outline the basic terms and conditions of a deal, they serve different purposes and carry different legal implications. In this article, we will explore the key differences between a term sheet and a letter of intent, and why understanding these differences can make or break a deal. What is a term sheet? A term sheet is a non-binding agreement that outlines the basic terms and conditions under which an investment will be made. It serves as a framework for the legal documentation that will follow and is primarily used in venture capital and private equity deals. The term sheet is usually drafted after initial discussions have been made between the investor and the company, but before any legal documents are prepared. The purpose of a term sheet is to ensure that both parties agree on the main points of the deal before they incur the time and expense of drafting and negotiating a binding contract. Term sheets typically include terms such as the amount of investment, valuation of the company, the percentage of equity to be acquired, governance rights, and liquidation preferences, among other key terms. What is a letter of intent, LOI? A letter of intent, or LOI, is a document outlining the understanding between two or more parties who intend to enter into a transaction, such as a merger or acquisition. Unlike a term sheet, an LOI can be either binding or non-binding, depending on how it is drafted. It is often used in more complex transactions, such as mergers and acquisitions, where multiple aspects of the deal need to be outlined before moving forward. The LOI serves as a foundation for drafting the final, legally binding agreement. It usually includes a broader range of terms than a term sheet, such as confidentiality clauses, exclusivity periods, due diligence timelines, and other provisions that set the stage for further negotiations. Key differences between term sheet and LOI. While both a term sheet and an LOI are preliminary documents used in business transactions, there are several key differences between them. Number 1. Purpose. The primary purpose of a term sheet is to outline the key terms of a deal in a concise manner, mainly focusing on the financial aspects of an investment. It is used mainly in venture capital and private equity transactions to set the stage for drafting final legal agreements. On the other hand, an LOI is used to express the intention to enter into a more comprehensive and often more complex transaction, such as a merger or acquisition. It includes not just financial terms, but also strategic elements of the deal. Number 2. Scope of terms. A term sheet is usually more focused on the financial terms of a deal, such as valuation, investment amount, and equity percentage. In contrast, an LOI covers a broader range of topics, including legal and regulatory considerations, due diligence processes, and other pre-transaction matters. Number 3. Binding nature. Term sheets are generally non-binding, meaning that neither party is legally obligated to proceed with the deal as outlined. They are meant to provide a basis for negotiation and are not intended to be legally enforceable. In contrast, an LOI can be either binding or non-binding. When binding, an LOI can obligate the parties to proceed with the transaction under certain terms or require them to negotiate in good faith. Number 4. Use cases. Term sheets are typically used in early-stage investments, such as venture capital and angel investing, where the focus is on securing funding and agreeing on basic financial terms. LOIs, however, are more common in later-stage transactions, such as mergers, acquisitions, or large-scale strategic partnerships, where a more detailed understanding of the parties' intentions is required. The importance of understanding. Term sheet and LOI for entrepreneurs and business professionals. Understanding the differences between a term sheet and an LOI is crucial. Entering into either document without fully understanding its implications can lead to misunderstandings, legal complications, or even the failure of a deal. It is important to consult with legal and financial advisors to ensure that any preliminary agreement aligns with your business goals and protects your interests. When to use a term sheet versus LOI. Understanding when to use a term sheet versus an LOI is crucial for structuring a deal effectively. Here are some considerations for determining which document is most appropriate. Number 1. Nature of the deal. If the deal primarily involves a financial investment with straightforward terms, a term sheet may be sufficient. This is often the case in venture capital investments, where the focus is on financial terms such as valuation, investment amount, and equity stake. Number 2. Complexity of the transaction. For more complex transactions that involve multiple components, such as mergers, acquisitions, or strategic partnerships, an LOI is typically more appropriate. The LOI provides a more comprehensive framework that covers not only financial terms, but also strategic, operational, and legal considerations. 3. Stage of negotiation. Term sheets are usually used at the early stages of negotiation when parties are primarily interested in agreeing on financial terms. LOIs are often used at a later stage when there is a need to formalize the parties' intent to proceed with the transaction and outline a more detailed roadmap for completing the deal. Number 4. Legal binding nature. If there is a need for certain provisions to be legally binding, such as confidentiality or exclusivity, an LOI is more suitable as it can include both binding and non-binding provisions. In contrast, term sheets are generally non-binding and are used primarily as a negotiation tool. Risks and considerations. Both term sheets and LOIs carry certain risks and considerations that parties should be aware of before entering into them. Number 1. Non-binding nature. While both documents can be non-binding, they can still set expectations and create a psychological commitment between the parties. It is important to be clear about what is binding and non-binding to avoid misunderstandings. Number 2. Negotiation. Leverage. Entering into a term sheet or LOI can affect your negotiation leverage. For example, a long exclusivity period in an LOI might limit a seller's ability to negotiate with other potential buyers, reducing competitive tension. Number 3. Legal costs and time. Drafting and negotiating these documents can be time-consuming and costly, especially if there are extensive revisions and negotiations. It is important to balance the need for thoroughness with the desire to move quickly. 4. Confidentiality and data sharing. Both documents often involve the sharing of sensitive information. It is essential to have strong confidentiality provisions in place to protect this information, especially if the deal does not proceed. Conclusion. Both term sheets and letters of intent play critical roles in business transactions, serving as preliminary agreements that set the stage for final negotiations and formal contracts. While they share similarities, they are distinct in their purposes, scope, and legal implications. By understanding the key differences between a term sheet and an LOI, business professionals can better navigate the complexities of deal-making and protect their interests in any transaction.